quick break we had. All right. All right. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. All right. So we just finished up the discussion, making sure I'm on the same page with everybody, on 20.2.50.6, and now we're getting into 20.2.50.7. And that has several sections. That's definitions. So we'll go into definitions. So we have A, B, C, D, E, all with looks like with enemy D, just with enemy D's position here. So it looks like we've got consensus on those. And board members, please double check me as you look at your notes that it looks like that's the case. And if it is, yes, Member Hunker?
Yeah, that's the way it looks to me. So I would move that we adopt sections 20.2.50.7A through E as proffered by the department and with the department's proffered rationale or statement of reasons.
Thank
Get
you.
that?
Thank you, Member Bitzer, for your second. With that, I just want to look one more time to our board if there's any comments on that or discussion. And if not, I'm going to look to Ms. Jones. Could you do a roll call vote on that? Motion from Member Hunker and a second from Member Bitzer.
Yes. Member Bitzer, your vote?
Vote yes.
Member Cates?
Yes.
Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. So now we get into, let me get the right citation here, 20.2.50.7, F as in Frank. So on this, we have enemy D's recommendation or position, and then we also have Numoga. So I want to make sure we touch upon this one and any discussion that our board members have on this particular item. Yes, Member Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
I'm looking at the proposed language of Numoga, and I remember this discussion with Mr. Smitherman's testimony, and the issue he brought up, I think, is really important, is that a well can be completed, shut in, and then later turned on. It could be even weeks or months later turned on and put into sales. So there could be a definite break in time for the language of, but no later than the end of the well completion operation before well actually goes into a sales operation, which the enemy D, or which the current language says consistently flowing to a sales line. I think that in practice there is an issue there. So I would agree with Numoga's language of no later than the end of the well completion operation.
Is there any other discussion from the other board members on this one? Member Bitzer.
I would concur, if I understood you, Madam Vice Chair, that you meant with deletion of, but no later than the end of well completion operation. Yeah, I would tend to concur with that. I remember this discussion as well. It seemed reasonable, and given the vicissitudes of the market, and the idea that you want to deploy your human resources and your capital in a steady way, it might be advantageous to get something done while you've got excess capacity, even though the market doesn't necessarily demand or suggest even that you bring it on at that point, because you're going to have ebbs and flows in your labor supply and your need for labor.
Thank you for that, Member Honker. I mean, sorry, Member Bitzer, Member Honker.
Yeah, and I think I concur with Vice Chair Trujillo Davis and Member Bitzer. This seems to be a valid point, and I can see it being an issue in the field.
Oh, sorry, Member Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at, I appreciate the members' comments. That's helpful. I'm looking at the department's rationale that this is consistent with Colorado Reg 7. I'm not so much compelled by that. I don't think we have to make it consistent with Colorado Reg 7, but the following phrase, and is consistent with the term as used in Part 50, that gave me a little bit of pause, because I'm wondering if this term is used throughout the rule, would we have to add that phrase wherever it's used? I don't know. That just gave me pause. Not to say I'm opposed to it. I just thought maybe we should flesh that out a little bit. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Thank you for that, Member Garcia. Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
I think Member Garcia has a good question there, and maybe what we should do is look at the term throughout Part 50. If we could give a quick scan and see if how that holds up.
Okay. Are you thinking that Madam Hearing Officer do that also, or just us individually?
I always welcome a set of eyes, and if Madam Hearing Officer has intimate knowledge of this document, so I would love to have her weigh in on that as well.
Okay, I'm looking. I don't know if you can see that I'm looking, but there it is in F. The first time. I've just searched on commencement. Now at the bottom of page 24, this relates to a proposal by Wild Earth Guardians in LL on potential to emit. And then there are 3 more examples where commencement is used. Bottom of page 25, also a Wild Earth Guardian. About halfway through page 47, in the definition ZZ, storage vessel. Very bottom of page 241, on pig launching. And finally, near the top of page 242, also in a section about pig launching.
Thank you for that, Madam Hearing Officer. So with that, as we discuss this commencement of operation, as I also read this language with that, there might, to Member Garcia's comment, there might be some additional consideration there. Sorry, I'm going through myself. Yes, Member Honker.
Well, one option, we could table this section, take it up later after we've worked through maybe the rest of the rule and then, you know, in looking at other sections, it might be more clear whether this would have an impact somewhere else, whatever we decide on section F here.
Thank you for that, Member Honker. Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
Just based on the quick scan that Ms. Orth did for us, it appears that there's many places in the operations where commencement of operation term is used. So pigging is one example we saw there that has nothing to do with the beginning of the well, can be done at any time of operations, and actually isn't even a part of the, it's a midstream or a downstream operation. It's not an upstream operation. When we talk about well completions, we're talking upstream. So I feel like striking the term actually clarifies the term commencement of operation. But I also support Member Honker's suggestion to table the issue until we go through the rest of the rule, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Member Garcia.
Thank you. I just want to ask, and actually this is a question for Vice Chair Trujillo Davis, because you're more familiar with the oil and gas industry. It appears that Numoga is wanting it struck, and by striking it, I'm trying to understand the significance of striking it, the full significance of striking it. It looks like the rule would be applicable more time, which, am I reading that wrong? I mean, which isn't a problem. I don't see that being a problem. So I may not have a problem with striking it either. So can you clarify that for me?
Yes, I think if I understand your question correctly, I agree. I think that by striking it, the rule will be applicable. Wait, before I answer, let me look at this again. I don't want to get myself in trouble here.
Not to interrupt you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis, but to Member Garcia's point, it seems that, but no later than the end of well completion operation. So my other question is there operations before, or that happens before the end of well completion operation?
There can be some operations in the meantime to get the well up and running and ready for to go to sales. There can be some small sales done at that time, but the well is not considered operational and fully going to sales. And that's where the term consistently flowing to a sales line comes into play, because any sales that occur during that time are not consistent sales. They are simply making room to get rid of material and finish completions and get the well running. So to go back to Member Garcia's question of if the rule would be in effect longer, I believe that was your question, Member Garcia?
Yes, and I'm looking at the condensed version of what the hearing officer wrote for Numogas Position, and it's talking about Mr. Smitherman's testimony regarding the waste rule, the OCD proposed, which I know, intermingles with this rule. And so I'm a little unclear now that I read it again, whether the time extended is for the waste rule or for this rule. I assume it's for this rule, but anyway, I don't mean to confuse the issue, and perhaps this gives a good reason to go with Member Honker's suggestion, just to make sure.
Absolutely. I believe, Member Garcia, that you're providing more clarity to this section, because you are correct. The waste rule, OCD's waste rule, does play a role in this section here. So I am with Member Honker on possibly delaying it, because I think maybe what we need clarification on is, does that waste rule fill in that gap time between during completions and going to sales? Are we doubling the oversight during that time with leaving this language in?
Correct, and I think, or are we missing a gap in time as well? Yes, member Cates.
Yeah, Chairman Swaina. So it looks to me like I'm a little reluctant on this. It looks like Numoga is asking for a pass during time in which a well is drilled and is in existence, and doesn't want it to be regulated unless it's operating. But there, and as my understanding, leaks can occur, flaring can occur, and that my inclination is to not allow this change for that reason.
Thank you, Member Cates. Oh, what is the pleasure of the board? Do we want to table this to Member Honker's suggestion? Yes,
Well,
Vice Chair.
I actually want to pose this question to Ms. Solaria, is how do we get clarification on, because from the beginning, NMED and OCD have put out there that this rule is supposed to bookend with the OCD rule. So where we have questions about how it bookends, who can answer that for us, or how can we get clarification on that?
Member Trujillo Davis, I would have to look at their submissions to see if they went into detail about, I can't recall if they went into detail about kind of how it goes hand in hand with the OCD's rules. I'm loath to do any kind of research during this phase of the process because the record's closed, and I don't want there to be a challenge regarding whether we properly considered another rulemaking body's rules and interpreted them correctly. So I would say if you want, we could spend time to look back at the department's proffer on that issue to see if they discussed that point about how it would work. I obviously can't recall off the top of my head what was said during testimony. But that I think that would be the only way to address that question, because I don't think it's appropriate for us to do our own research outside of what was offered during the hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Solaria. So maybe Vice Chair Trujillo Davis could pull up NMED's exhibit and Numogas. What do you think about that?
I think that is a really good suggestion. that we look back through the record to see if this particular topic was covered, or if any party testified on it.
And I don't want to put the hearing officer on the spot, but if she has any helpful recollection on that with regard to the record, of course, I'm sure the board would welcome that. And I don't know if you want to take the time to do that now, or what the pleasure of the board is on that point.
Yes, Member Hunker?
I did look at NMED's rebuttal exhibit 1, page 5, which is referenced in the hearing officer's discussion here. And that's a 1-sentence thing that is basically the same as what's in here. NMED does not agree with Numoga's proposal to strike, but no later than the end of well completion operation. This definition is consistent with Colorado Reg 7 and is consistent with the term as used in Part 50. That's all that rebuttal says on this point.
Thank you for that, Member Hunker. Yes, Member Garcia.
Just to clarify with the hearing officer, I agree with you, Member Honker, for the NMED exhibit. That is the correct exhibit, but she's also referring to Numoga's exhibit. I think it's 41, I believe. I was looking for it. I haven't found it in the docketed page, but I think it would take us a lot of time to try to find that. And I'm just wondering if we put a pin on this and just make sure that we don't forget to come back to it. I know our council will not let us do that. And just keep thinking about it as we go through other places where commencement of operation, and it might become more clear, as Member Honker suggested.
Thank you, Member Garcia. I've noted it, and Ms. Solaria, and would you also note it? So we'll continue going forward if that's the pleasure of the board. And I know it'll come up again. And so I think also in the meantime, maybe I've been looking as we're talking here to Numoga's exhibit as well. So we'll do that so not to hang us up right now on our progress. Is that okay with the board? Great. See a lot of head nods there, so we'll do that, and we'll go to the next item G. We're gonna table item 4, go to item G, and looks like it's just NMED on H. G and H. So I was wondering if we can get those out of the way and maybe entertain a motion, since all we have is NMED's position. Yes, Member Honker.
Well, it looks like I is uncontested as well.
Okay.
So we may want to do G, H, and I.
Okay. Okay. So GCA supports on I supports the proposed definition. Okay. I see that.
So I will move that we adopt.
I think that would be
sections G, H, and I in the definitions as proposed by NMED and supported by their rationale.
Second that.
Thank you, Member Bitzer.
Madam Chair, can I guess I have a question of clarification for the board. The statement of reasons can be as detailed as the board prefers, and for sections like this where there is express support by either an industry group or environmental group, if you would like me to include that support in your statement of reasons, I would suggest that you put that in the motion. We don't have to, but I did want to offer that option for the board.
Thank you for that, Ms. Solaria. Yes, Member Honker.
Yeah, and in keeping with that, so I'll amend my motion to say we should, I'll propose we adopt sections G, H, and I as proposed by NMED and supported by their rationale, including the, plus the supporting language from GCA under I.
Second that.
Thank you, Member Honker, and Member Bitzer for your second. If I don't see any discussion from the board, I will look to Ms. Oh, yes, Member Garcia.
It looks as though J is not contested. Am I wrong about that?
That's what I see too.
And K as well.
Okay.
So let me amend my motion again to say we adopt sections G, H, I, J, and K as proposed by the department with their rationale and supporting language from GCA.
I'll second that one too.
Ms. Solaria, do we need to be specific on GCA was only for section I?
I think that's specific enough only because the I is the only one that has GCA reference. So
Okay, all right, just making sure.
yeah, thank
All
you.
right. With that, if there's no other discussion, Ms. Jones, would you do a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Member Cates? Member Cates,
Yes.
how do you?
Yes,
Yes, oh,
yes,
thank you. Thank you. Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate that. So we'll get on to the next item, which is L, the design value, which means the 3-year average of the annual 4th highest daily maximum 8-hour average ozone concentration. We have a position by NMED and one by Numoga. Proposal for Numoga to add at ambient ozone monitor at the end of the sentence. Do I hear any discussion on this? Yes, Member Garcia. I mean, yeah, Member Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I looked at this, I don't see any harm with adding that phrase. So I have no opposition to adding that phrase.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Thought I saw another member put their hand up. Is there any other comments by our members? All right. Yes, Ms. Solaria.
I would just for the board's consideration that this does touch on the issue considered in the scope section at 20.2.50.2. I'm trying to think as we're going through this if a vote in the affirmative of this would be consistent with your prior vote. Are any of the board members understanding what I'm talking about? Because their position on whether to tie it to an ozone monitor, I believe, and I could be wrong, is kind of part and parcel of their position with regard to scope. That may be an overread though, and if the board doesn't see that issue, then I'm not going to insert my take on that, but I did want to highlight that since that was a previous legal issue.
Thank you for that, Ms. Solaria. Appreciate it. Member Honker, did I see your hand raised?
Yes, and I think that's a good point. I am not sure what the ramifications would be if we add this language, and would that weaken some other rationale, for instance, for the 2 counties that didn't have a monitor? So I'm reluctant to add that because I'm not quite sure what the impact would be.
Thank you, Member Honker, and Vice Chair Trujillo Davis. Did I see your hand up?
Yes, you did. And Member Honker pretty much made my comment there. And I would like to us to consider this this proposition that Ms. Solaria and Member Honker proposed.
And that proposition, just so I'm clear, is that we should keep NMED's position because of our it may conflict by adding ambient ozone monitor when we didn't, our decision regarding the previous decision earlier this morning wouldn't align with that. Is that correct?
Yes, and I apologize for not being clear on that. Yes, the giving consideration to whether we're being inconsistent by adopting this language, and I think that's an important point to look at.
Thank you, Member Trujillo Davis. Yes, Member Garcia.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Soloria and Member Honker, for bringing that up. I stand corrected. Adding this would actually make a big impact. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I changed my mind that it would be harmless. It indeed would change the meaning in regard to those 2 counties. So very good point taken. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Honker, did I see your hand up?
Well, I just for the record, I did not hear Ms. Solaria making a recommendation. She was just pointing out a question which I piggybacked on. So I would move that we adopt section L as drafted by the department with the department's proffered rationale.
Thank you, Member Honker. Is there a second? Yes, Member Garcia.
I second that motion.
Thank you for your second, Member Garcia. I'm looking around and see if any other board members have any other comments. If not, Ms. Jones, would you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And Member Cates? Member Cates, how do you vote? Okay, so we'll circle back around to him. Member Duval, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Member Cates?
Looks like he's busy.
Oh, okay, Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
So we'll try one more time. Member Cates, do you want to vote on this, on section L? Okay, Madam Chair, the motion passes with one member missing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. That'll be for the record. Let's see. Next, we have another item M, downtime definition. And so we have NMED's position and also Numoga's position. So there's a difference in Numoga's position to replace not in operation with inoperable. I just want to share that with the board and see if board members have any comments regarding item M with either NMED's position or Numoga's position. And if there's no discussion, I just want to point out that it's interesting. The comment from Numoga was that it was in the department's testimony of downtime should only include time the equipment is inoperable and not when it's shut off because the control process unit is not operating. I also want to note really quick before we discuss is the CEP and Oxy propose additional definitions related to their proposals in sections 123 and 127. So yes, I apologize. There was a board member wanted to comment. Yes, member.
Chair Sweeney, Chair Sweeney, one way to read this is the Numoga language here is that, you know, perhaps what they're saying is if our well is broke, then we're not covered by these statutes, and you know, that is problematic, I would think. That's it.
Thank you, member Cates. Yes, member Hunker, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it's on the inoperable versus not in operation. It seems like not in operation is a more broad category. I mean, inoperable implies it can't be operated, and I'm not sure. It seems like inoperable would be a more restricting definition of downtime than not in operation. So I don't quite understand the rationale for making that change. I'm kind of puzzled by this one. That's all I have to say.
Yes, member Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to agree with Member Honker that not in operation seems to cover all the bases. And I think there's some, you know, enforcement discretion used in the field, and they can figure out what is the appropriate way to deal with this. As they're enforcing this particular section, I think they can work through that with the industry. So, so I agree that not in operation covers all the bases.
Thank you, member Garcia, and Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
I'm going to also agree with member Honker and member Garcia. The term inoperable does seem to imply that it is more restrictive, and not in operation does imply that it covers more of the ambiguous situations that could occur.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis. Yes, member Honker.
And with regard to the additional definitions that CEP and Oxy propose, NO and R and S, I mean, they look like good definitions, but if the regulatory agency hasn't seen a need to include defining those terms I'm not sure why we should add them when the agency that's going to be implementing this rule doesn't feel a need for them. So I'm inclined to not include those.
Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
I'm gonna take the opposing stance there, because I feel that oftentimes, due to the nature of industry and not just oil and gas, but any industry that is innovating, that their terms tend to be a step ahead of a regulatory agency. And so I feel that if they're proposing additional definitions, they want to clarify the process that are occurring, that are listed within the rule. And so I think that these definitions they seem to be well thought out and just points of clarification.
Thank you, Member Trujillo Davis. Member Duval.
Yes, I would reiterate Member Trujillo Davis's point. I mean, I think anytime, I think this adds clarity, not muddies the water. And then especially if it's going to be something that is going to be reliant upon in future contexts. So yeah, I completely agree with Amanda. I would say retain this language.
So keep the link, just for clarification, Member Duval and Vice Chair Trujillo Davis, keep the position of NMEDs in this section?
Yes, that's my.
Okay. Thank you, Member Duval. I just wanted to make sure I get that clarified. Member Garcia, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm also trying to make sure. Okay, so we had the discussion about in operation or inoperable, about M. Now we're talking about NORS. Is that correct? And it looks as though NORS is related to section 123 and 127. I wonder if we should address those then, because I'm not sure, I don't remember how they're related to those sections right now. But I think M is an easy one to do a motion and deal with.
Madam Chair, this is Felicia. I believe by taking up the definitions proposed by CEP and Oxy at the time you were taking up sections 123 and 127, you will also be able to see whether, for example, NMED had any opposition there, because I think perhaps opposition has been assumed here when it's not true. And my understanding of the department's position on a fair number of these things, where you don't see the department necessarily providing explicit support, is that they want to direct you to the proposing parties' support. But we're not really going to be able to see the fullness of that until we get to those sections.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. Appreciate that clarification. And I appreciate the note as well in the attachment that you've provided, just to give us a heads up of those sections further down our deliberations. So with that, members of the board, I think, yes, Member Garcia?
Then if I may, I would move to adopt 20.2.50.7 M downtime, the definition downtime as proposed by the department with the reasons given by the department.
I would second that.
Thank you. With that, if I don't see any further discussion, yes, Member Cates.
So Member Garcia, could you say again what the motion is?
Yes, certainly. I would move to adopt 20.2.50.7 M downtime as is for the reasons stated by NMED.
Which is to say, we're not endorsing the exception that Numoga is asking for here, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you. And then we had a second already on that motion. So with that, if there's no other discussion, Ms. Jones, we could do a roll call vote.
Yes, Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Member Cates?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate that. With that, let's keep moving here to NOR&S that we have just talked about, or referenced briefly. And let's see, NMED has, just double checking here, correct me if I'm wrong, NMO.
Just a point of clarification. So we're going to table consideration of the CEP and Oxy proposed definitions, their proposed NOR and S, until we take up the sections 123 and 127.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that-
sounds good.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, see, thumbs up. Great. I got myself mixed up here. So we're on page, where are we now? So then do we go to P since NO?
Madam Chair, we would be on page 16 of the attachment, and it's, it would still be N.
Okay,
because the-
gotcha, gotcha. Okay. I got two N's over here. Thank you so much. So we look at N, enclosed combustion device, O, existing, P, gathering and boosting station, Q, glycol dehydrator, and as just an NMED position. On R, it looks like it, again, back to sections 123 and 127. So I just want to look to members of the board. How do you want to capture this? Because, and then S, hydrocarbon liquid does not have any, it's just NMED's position. T, U, V, W. I should be clear. U, let me go back here. So, okay, we have S, hydrocarbon liquid, T, inactive well site, U, injection well site, V, intermittent pneumatic controller, W, liquid unloading, X, liquid transfer, Y, local distribution company custody transfer station, Z, low bleed pneumatic controller, AA, natural gas fire heater, BB, natural gas processing plant, CC, new, BD, non-emitting controller. And we have new sections here, EE. So I guess I'm just going forward as we're going through this. We see a spectrum of, you know, where enemy D doesn't, it's only enemy D's position, but there's a couple where we have some to kick the can down the road later on when we get to sections 123 and 127. How would you guys, how would the board like to? Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
Let's see if I understand correctly. So right above hydraulic fracturing, W, there's a note there about sections 123 and 127. So I'm assuming this note is for W and X.
Yes, Madam Hearing Officer, can you
Yes, that's correct. What happened was am reflecting the proposal as it was presented in the post-hearing submittals. So in the CEP and OXY proposed final proposals, they presented hydraulic fracturing and hydraulic refracturing as W and X. The board you know, can choose to use this reference or some other, but I didn't go about re-lettering things because that's the sort of thing the department will do based on the board's decisions here. So I didn't re-letter things.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer, for the clarification. Does that help, Vice Chair Tree? It helped me, so I appreciate the question.
Yes, so I just want to clarify that we will review W and X, the proposed, when we look at sections 123 and 127, in addition to, I believe it was the proposed NOP, NORS that was also proposed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is everybody good with that? Even though some of these additional items, just to point that out. Okay, see thumbs up here. So given that clarifies it for me also visually. Do we want to take up? There's a number of definitions where it's just enemy disposition. Yes, Member Hunker.
Yes, so I will move that we adopt 20.2.50.7 sections N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, double A, double B, double C, and double D as proposed by the department with the department's rationale.
Thank you, Member
With
Hunker.
that,
Thank you, Member Bitzer. Ms. Solaria, before
Madam Chairman, a question on the motion. So in all the string of letters there, are we omitting some in that series? I wasn't following Member Honker.
Thank
Closely
you.
enough.
Thank you, Member Cates, for that clarification. So it goes back to some of our discussion, even for me, when I visually was looking through this. So we have some sections that were proposed by some other stakeholders like OXY and CEP. And so those are embedded in this, you know, as we're going down. So Member Honker just identified those that NMED the department has identified. So we're not, and those ones that are getting kicked down the road will be associated to sections 123 and 127. We good?
Yeah, good. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Cates, for that. So with that, Ms. Solaria, I know that there is a little bit of confusion here. Does that motion seem clear?
Yes, that's fine. And I think this point has been made, but just because you're tabling it doesn't foreclose you adopting those definitions. And then the renumbering will take place administratively. You all don't have to worry about separately. That's not a concern of yours. If you adopt the definitions later, then they will be added.
And thank you for that point, Miss Solaria. And I think I had heard or read somewhere that because of the renumbering, at some point through this deliberation, we'll have to give I guess approval or make a decision that the NMED, the department, can reformat because it's is that correct?
We'll do that in an abundance of caution. I'll make sure that we have reordered it numerically as appropriate. When you file a rule, if there are minor like numbering changes that need to be made, those can be made, like I said, administratively by state records, but we will be sure to make sure that that's all on record, so that's clear.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So with that, we have Member Honker's motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, Ms. Jones, would you mind doing a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Member Cates?
Yes.
Member Duval?
Aye, yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. And let's we're moving forward fast here now, at least a little faster. So we're on EE, occupied area means the following. So we have NMED's position, and then we have Numoga's proposed changes to item 4. So we have EE1, EE2, EE3, and EE4. It looks like Numoga does not have any changes to 1 through 3, but does have comment regarding 4. And again, board members.
Chair Sweeney, a question here. I'm following along on my hard copy because I can see it better. I don't see page numbers up there. What page are we looking at then?
Yeah, so that would be
21.
21, back to 21. Okay. All right, thank you.
Also, Madam Chair, this is Felicia.
yes.
You may want to take this up in connection with section 116. I think it might be hard to understand the impact of the different options for the definition without looking at the significance of it in section 116.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, Madam Hearing Officer. With that, I'm looking at 116 just so I can make sure I'm not missing anything here. There. Okay. Okay. So we do have the equipment leaks and fugitive emissions. So with that, members of the board, do you have any leaning as to, are you okay with us taking EE up during consideration of section 116? Great, great. So we'll take EE up during that discussion of section 116. I'm gonna note that here. Okay. All right. So we're on FFGG as just NMED's position, and then on looks like HH we have IPA&M offering a definition of ozone precursor. Okay, so could we just go through FF and GG? Looks like only one position. Yes, Member Garcia. Oh, yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh. Sometimes I have to hit it twice. Okay. I would make a motion to adopt 20.2.50.7. Gosh, where were we? Was it FF?
Yes, FF and
Okay,
GG.
thanks. To adopt FF and GG for reasons stated by enemy D.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Garcia, for your motion, and a second by Member Hunker. Member Bitzer, you have a question?
Well, we also want to include HHII, JJ, KK.
Thank you for that, Member Bitzer.
On that.
Yeah. What is the board? So maybe this would be a question for the hearing officer. So your notes here, for example, on HH, you're just noting that IPA&M offers a different definition of ozone precursor, but not necessarily impacting or having a statement for HH. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the location of their proposal, right, under O. I was trying to alphabetize everything, if you will, from each of the final proposals. And so that's where IPA&M's new definition of ozone precursor would occur. But you're right, it's not a comment on HH.
Thank you so much. And thank you for clarifying that, Member Bitzer. So with that, Member Garcia, would you maybe extend your
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So I would move to adopt 20.2.50.7 FF, GG, HH, II, and JJ with reasons proffered by enemy D.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. If there's any other discussion, if not, Miss Jones, would you do a roll call vote?
Yes, Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And Member Cates?
Yes.
Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you so much, Miss Jones. So, so much like we had with EE on the additional definitions, I just don't want to lose out or miss the proposals or offers of definition, like for example, ozone precursor and let's see what portable stationary source. Madam Hearing Officer, maybe you can answer this. Is it best to take those up now? And I know we just voted on some of the ones, like you said, where you had it trying to alphabetize those.
So I don't believe the definition of ozone precursor would require consideration of another particular section. because it's offered as a clarifying definition and not one that is tied to a decision you would make in a different section. It's just a new definition, a definition of ozone precursor. As to the portable stationary source definition, what IPNM has done there, which I tried to note, was they took NMED's proposed definition of stationary source and broke off the last sentence, which refers to portable stationary source, and alphabetized it under P. Again, it's meant as a clarification, not as something that would be driven by a decision in another section. So I think you could handle each of these as a freestanding decision on a definition.
Okay. Thank you for that. So what is the pleasure of the board as we go down through here? So I'm at ozone precursor, which would be between, owner and then permanent pond, permanent pit or pond, as a new definition. Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
I think based on Ms. Orth's comments that it doesn't seem to affect any other section. I think it would be okay to take up this particular definition for consideration and then continue on with the definitions.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis. Any other board members? Yes, Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I agree. We can look at this now. In regard to the definition of ozone precursor, I would be concerned about limiting the definition to those two items. I mean, science is always changing. I wouldn't want to, I don't know if it's necessary to identify that.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Yes, Member Trujillo Davis.
I'm gonna take a little bit of an opposing position here. I think that it would be okay to adopt this particular definition for a couple of reasons. One, because the term ozone precursor is the name of the rule. And I felt like, having that definition in there is beneficial. Also, because the rule is consistent in identifying nitrogen oxides and VOCs as the ozone precursors defined in the rule. So I feel like it is also consistent with the messaging of the rule. And I also think this goes back to the section 20.2.50.6, where we saw that request for this language in the term co-benefit. But I think that this is a better addition than that term that we did not adopt. So those are my comments on it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis. Yes, Member Cates.
Yeah, I thanks for those comments from both of you. I would, I guess I would echo what Member Garcia said. Science is always changing. Does that mean that ozone precursors will ever have anything other than NOx and blocking them? I don't know, but if we adopt this language, then we're locked into it, and it's has a restrictive quality to it that seems unnecessary. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Member Cates. I appreciate that. Any other board members? Yes, Member Duval.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm a little, I'm really fuzzy on, well, this is very fuzzy in GG, the optical gas imaging. It's not at all clear. I mean, these are very well, there are very well established techniques to measure this, and high sensitivity infrared camera is not that's nothing that I am familiar with. I'm wondering where they came up with that language and what specific instrumentation. I don't like that language at all. I think that something along the lines of state-of-the-art infrared gas analysis. I mean, I could definitely help draft some language there, but that, I mean, this is not, I would need to, I definitely am, I'm inherently skeptical when I see vague methodology when it comes to something like this. I am not comfortable with that language at all. I mean, I can, if anyone can speak to that and tell me what they're using or what the proposed methodology would be, I'm happy to be corrected. I just want clarification on that. I mean, is there going to be a standard that's used to monitor these things? I mean, it's just incredibly vague for measuring something that needs to be inherently precise.
And Member Duval, can I just make a point of clarification?
Yes.
Which I know on here, hearing officer has the GG section on there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Loria. We've already voted on that section, have we not?
That's correct. That was grouped together
Okay.
with
Right.
H, H, I, and JJ. So
Apologies, I'm skimming back through.
No worries. No worries, Member.
But if I could offer a quick
But I would
clarification.
like to add to the record that I feel like there needs to be a point of clarification to the methodology, that this is incredibly vague for something that needs to be very precise. I think this is a really small, I should have looked at that section a little more carefully before I voted, because I probably would have voted no on that specific section.
Well, just in response to Member Duval, I think the reference there, high sensitivity infrared camera, that is the field instrument that's used in the process of it's a FLIR camera that has a couple other names, but that's the common field instrument that's used for leak detection of volatiles from piping and pumps and that sort of thing.
Thank
And
you.
I'll second Member Honker on that. That is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you,
Well, that
Vice
would
Chair.
definitely, speaking with putting my other hat on as an academic scientist, that would not pass muster in any sort of peer-reviewed situation. Yeah, I want to be on record as saying that I'm uncomfortable with that language, but I already voted yes, so I guess I have adjourned that. So
Thank you, Member Duval, and of course your comments are memorialized in records, in written record now via the court reporter. So I think that's a good point that you make as well. We are just a little bit further down on that, and on line number what is that? It's fuzzy on mine on the IPANM section about the ozone precursor. I apologize, I lost track. Did a member have their hand up regarding the ozone precursor? Okay. And so with this one, maybe I can also share is I think it goes to the rules and regulations of being so constricted that we don't have in the department moving forward, and us as a board and just the regulatory departments, we could set a precedence for really boxing in as technology comes about, and new impacts or new constituents may be identified into the future. And I just know that from my experience working up at the laboratory and looking at different constituents that we didn't think about before, say in or the laboratory or any industry, say in the 80s, now are tracking those constituents or having to meet certain regulatory requirements regarding those constituents. So that's just my 2 cents. Is I would hesitate to want to lock it into only nitrogen oxides or VOCs. And I know with that, I don't know if we want to discuss a little bit more. And yes, Member Honker.
Well, since this was not a definition included by the petitioner, I guess question for council, could we just take no action on this and therefore we wouldn't be approving it? I mean, I don't know that we have to do an up or down vote on this. If we don't do anything, it seems like it won't be in there. So just a procedural questions on that.
Yeah, and that's what I've been mulling as you all have continued your colloquy. I'm trying to remember. Madam Hearing Officer, was this just a freestanding definition proposal? I know you mentioned that this wasn't tied to a section.
Ms. Laura, in IPA&M's post-hearing submittal, I did not see it tied to any section. And if I say there that they offered it as a non-substantive clarification, I would have gotten that language from their own submittal.
Thank you. My position is that in an abundance of caution, there should be, because it was proposed, there should be something on record that the board declined to take up that proposal. And the rational offer would be that that the board found that the clarification was not necessary. Because it appears that they only offered it as quote unquote a non-substantive clarification, and the board has deemed that clarification is not warranted.
Yes, Ms. Laura. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Member Bitzer.
I would move that we go ahead and affirmatively reject the offered definition of ozone precursor for the reasons we've discussed, and because the Environmental Protection Agency already has described this, described what ozone precursors are.
Second.
Ms. Ilaria, just making sure our motion is again, abundance of caution, statement of reasons. Is that sufficient?
I think that's sufficient, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Bitzer, and your second, Member Cates. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis.
Given that it is a non-substantive clarification, I'm comfortable with that that train of thought. I'm rejecting it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis. With that, Ms. Jones, would you mind doing a roll call vote on Member Bitzer's motion?
Yes. Well, Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
Thanks, man. Yes.
Member Cates? Member Duval? Member Duval, how do you vote on this motion? We'll circle back. Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Member Duval?
Apologies, I had the thing zoomed in and didn't see my icon for the unmute. Yes.
Awesome. And Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Jones. And with that, I got lost in our discussion earlier, but I see that we're at 12:17. Just want to look at the board and see if you want to take a lunch break anytime soon. Do you want to go through a few more, or what's the pleasure of the board? Yes, Member Garcia.
Yes, I'm fine with taking a lunch break now. I see that it looks like L, or rather, where are we? KK.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I can't remember
Yes,
which was the last one we approved.
KK would be the next that we would need to address, and that is unopposed. However, we have an offer of a definition of portable stationary source. After that, we hit potential to emit, which is very contested. So that we definitely don't want to start that right now. So I'm fine with either addressing KK and then taking a break, or taking a break now. I'm fine either way.
Yes, Member Duval.
So two points. For one, I have all of the documentation, but I can't find this specific. I'm like straining my eyes to look at the screen on the. I know I have it all in my email. I have it all pulled up. I am not certain which. It would be much. I have two screens. It would be really good. Like, what exact document is this that that Ms. Jones has pulled up? I can't tell the way.
Yeah, this is the hearing officer's report
Okay.
that we got hard copies of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I'm like, I have 18 copies of everything, and I can see it on the screen, but it's very tiny text and it's kind of straining my eyes. Okay,
Right.
and okay. That's very useful. The other thing is,
I can only read it on the hard copy. I cannot read that screen. It's too small. So.
And then the other thing that I also suggest that we take a lunch break, but I have an absolute hard deadline at 4, or meeting at 4 o'clock that I cannot miss. We have we're interviewing job candidates. I absolutely cannot miss that. So I am going to be, if this deliberation goes beyond that, I will be checking out at 4. So I apologize for that.
Thank you, Member Duval.
As typical, I'm triple booked. So
thank you, Member Duval. And with that, before we take our lunch break, I just wanted to just reiterate, just for all the members here today, Ms. Solaria, we still could move forward. For example, if a member was not able and he or she can come back in. Is that correct?
That's correct. Just at all times that there's discussion, there has to be a quorum, which we would have absent Member Duval, so we can continue in his absence.
Yeah, and to that point, and I mentioned this, or I sent an email to Chair Sweeney that tomorrow morning is going to be problematic, and then I also have a meeting in the afternoon that I cannot skip. So I don't know if these proceedings are being recorded. potentially I could revisit that, and that would help any, sort of further discussion. But I mean, I will be, I canceled class this afternoon. I'm making as much time as I possibly can.
Thank you for that, Member Duval. I appreciate all your juggling on your schedule as well. And so, I mean, with that, I think, and it's my understanding, once we make the decision as a quorum is on the meeting, then, but Member Duval will be able to see the transcripts. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, a transcript is being made, but also we're recording it, and I'm happy to upload all of the recordings into a Dropbox folder and send the link to all of you, so you'll be able to see the recordings each night if you'd like. I didn't realize that folks were straining to see the type. So I'm wondering if this is better, if I just sort of zoom it out like that.
This is much better. This is much better.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. Appreciate that. And yes, I was going to suggest just do one page at a time so we can see what we're looking at, making sure we're all on the same page. Literally. With that though, I was wondering, since we're going to be getting into potential to emit, and we have 2 items, or 1 definitely, do you think we could at least do that before lunch, have get that out of the way so that we're not having to discuss that? What do you guys think? Okay, great. So we have, we end it with JJ, and then we do have KK, which has just the NMED's position. Could I have a motion on that one? And please correct me if I'm wrong or I'm seeing something different. Yes, Member Honker.
Yes, I will move we adopt section KK as proposed by the department with the department's rationale.
I
Second that.
second. Yeah, second.
Thank you, Member Honker, and Member Duval for your second. With that, I don't see any discussion. Ms. Jones, could you do a vote on that?
Yes, ma'am. On section KK, Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
Oh, yes?
And Member Cates?
Yes.
Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Chair Sweeney?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you for that. Then really quick here again, we have the portable stationary source. Is this, Madam Hearing Officer, is this slightly different than the ozone precursor, in that the ozone precursor, it said language of basically didn't have substantive impact or issues with that? For the rest, is this similar along the same lines?
Yes, Madam Chair. And if I were to scroll, I don't want to make anyone dizzy, but if I were to scroll to NMED's definition of stationary source, you would see that the final sentence in their definition is this sentence: portable stationary source means a source that can be relocated, etc. If I can find it really fast, I can show it to you.
Thank you, Madam.
Close your eyes if you are going to be triggered by this. Let's see here. Well, oh, we're getting close.
Yes.
Well,
Stationary source right there. Why? you see the final sentence there, portable stationary source means a source that can be relocated. And IPNM's proposal is just to break out that last sentence.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Madam Hearing Officer, and I thought I heard a board member.
Well, I was just gonna
So I just say it seemed the proposed change is superfluous at best. So I would not be inclined to adopt it.
Thank you, Member Kate, and then I think I also saw Member Honker.
I agree with Member Cates. But we could just take this up when we get to YY.
Yes, Member Garcia.
Yeah, I agree it's unnecessary. And looking at YY, it already covers it. It seems completely unnecessary. I don't think YY is ambiguous at all. So I'm not even sure why they want to do it. I'd be happy to make a motion if we're ready.
Sure.
Okay, I would move that we reject the proposal by IPA&M to include a definition for portable stationary source.
Second.
I didn't say for the reasons stated. Thank you.
Second again.
Well, we need a clarification on the reasons, right?
Can you, Member Garcia, if you want to amend your motion that the clarification is unnecessary.
So I would move to reject the proposal by IPA&M for a new definition of portable stationary source due to the fact that it is unnecessary to include that new definition. It's already clear in YY.
Thank you, Member Garcia. There a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Hunker. Is there any other discussion? If not, Ms. Jones, would you mind doing a roll call vote?
Yes, Member Bitzer, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
And Member Cates? Member Duval?
Yes.
Member Garcia?
Yes.
Member Honker?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
Yes.
Sweeney?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. All right. So we're right here at potential to emit and good stopping point for lunch. And I just look to the members on what you think in terms of lunch break. Half an hour, hour. I'm open. Yes, Member Duval? 1 hour? What about you, Vice Chair Trujillo Davis?
I was gonna propose a half hour. We got a lot of stuff to get through in 2 days, so that was just my suggestion.
Sure. Let's see. Anybody else? Any other members have any input?
Could split the difference and say 40 minutes. I gotta walk my dog here. It'll take me a while.
Okay. Okay. So 45 minutes, does that work? Okay, so we'll see you back at 1:15.
Okay.
Thank you.
Come on, Charlie.